Welcome everyone, this is HoganWorks, and we're going to build ourselves an Exocrine today, and go along with the process here, share any tips and tricks, and hopefully the sound will be a lot better today. I apologize for the low quality last time, had a few wires crossed, but I think we've got it figured out, so let's just jump right in. So this is a beautiful kit from Games Workshop. Actually built both the Haruspex and the Exocrine. This one definitely has some really awesome detail in here, but I'm a big fan of the Tyranid heavy weapon, so I'm going to go ahead and go for the Exocrine. Get all the pieces out here. Very nice. Beautiful. And our base. And once again, I always try to take a look through the instructions real quick, just to make sure I don't have any surprises waiting for me. And for most of these, it's just going to be a basic body construction, and then we'll be able to figure out the variant that we want. It's all the way up to here, and then the first one, no, we still have leg assembly. And there we go, and then all the way up here. So most of the body is complete by the time we get back around to the Exocrine variant up here. Alright, there's that wonderful giant cannon. The very first time I played this Tyranid army, I had a Tyranifex with a rupture cannon. And in his first turn of shooting, he absolutely blew apart a repulsor Primaris Space Marine tank. It blew up and it was glorious, and since that day I have just been in love with the Tyranid Bio-weapons. So, alright, let's go ahead and get started. Once again, I'll be working with my Citadel nippers. You can use any of these you like, just as long as I have a flat side right here. I just like these ones quite a bit, so I have to get going there. So let's grab our first sprue here. It looks like what we want is to grab these tail pieces. So let's nip these out. And again, what I try and do with the nippers is I try and level them out on the angle of the cut that I'm going to be making, just to help reduce the amount of extra little flashing that's on the miniature. Alright, one piece. Two. And then what I'll do is I'll just cut out the rest of the pieces that are on this page so that they are ready to go. Looks like I need the other sprue here. And we've got the rib cage, these guys here. And you can see how quick this is to get these out with a nipper. It really does make your whole experience much better. And then we've got this little piece right here. And again, this is a better example. There's a bit of an angle right here on the piece, so I try and line the nose of my nippers up right there on that angle so that when I cut it, I get the smallest amount of that flashing left over. All right, let's move on to our cleanup phase. Always be careful. Make sure that you are using proper knife safety with X-Acto blades. They are incredibly sharp. That's what happened there. And again, just in case it didn't come up in the other video, I'm currently trying out these X-Acto Z series. Have a little bit of a gold edge. I think they have a double bevel on them as their claim to fame, like you'd see in a chisel or woodworking tool. And I think I'm pretty happy with them so far. A little up and down at the beginning, but it seems to be growing on me. All right, so let's grab our pieces here and start looking for those little pieces of plastic. And as you can see, I'm cutting so that the plane of the knife blade is going over top of my finger and not into it. And as much as I can, I will do that. And some right there. And on some of the more organic pieces, using a flexible sanding stick, or a foam sanding block, like this guy from your local hardware store, can be a helpful tool. All right, so continuing right along here. Once again, I'm just going to lay the blade flat against the angle that I want to trim, and then that helps me not take too big of a bite, which will happen quite a bit. I have several miniatures where there's a big strange angle on an aircraft or a piece of armor plating that shouldn't be angled because I've taken too big of a bite. So definitely just little small pieces. It also helps you keep the blade under control, which keeps you safer. Most of these are pretty clean. As I said, I've been quite a fan of my little nippers, both for speed and kind of the cleanliness of the miniature. Oops, I'm sorry. Let me move that back down here. Still learning, you know, so feel free to call me out on this stuff. I want these to be as good as I can make them. All right, and the last piece here of this set, of course. Along there. And if you do find any mold lines on some of these organic pieces, there's kind of one right there. What you can do is you just turn your blade backwards, put a little pressure on it, and drag it across to get that up. Now this can leave little flat spots, so what you can do then is come back in with your sanding brick and just kind of take those off. All right. So we'll be using Citadel's plastic glue. This is a glue that actually welds the plastic together. It's perfect for these miniatures. It's quick. It won't glue your fingers together, and it has a nice metal tip that's pretty easy to keep clean. And when your bottle gets low, you can just pull it out, and you'll be able to get every last drop of glue out of these. So I like these. All right, so I'm going to dry fit the two pieces together that I want to glue so that I can see where all of those edges are and how they align so I can get the glue on the right spaces. I'll go in and I'll just use a few little drips and drabs right along these flat plates and in the seams, just like that. I also drop that piece. Remember, the most handy piece of hobbying equipment when doing this is a flashlight, so when you drop them in your carpet or your floor at night, you'll be able to find them again. All right, and that presses together very nicely. Too, what's nice about the plastic weld is that it also will help kind of smooth out some of the gaps, and you can even kind of use that to your advantage. And again, if you haven't already, go to your local hardware store, spend $1 on a handful of these little clips, and your time hobbying will be a little bit more efficient. These little ones aren't very strong, which is what you want. You don't want them hurting the plastic here, and as you can see, they've just helped me kind of grip that piece, and now I can set it aside and be fairly assured of a nice seam. All right, next piece here looks like we're going to be putting together parts of the chest plate here. So once again, we'll kind of dry fit these together so we know the orientation and how they're going to fit. And I imagine this one's actually going to fit a little bit where one edge is open like this. And then the other piece here will sit in that gap. Now the question, of course, is whether or not that gap needs to be glued in ahead of time, or if we can slide it in after the fact. So we will find out. It looks like it actually needs to be glued in, but there's a nice spot where it sits right here. So we should be able to just put some glue on that ahead of time and sneak that one in. So we'll go ahead and drop a line of glue in there. Make sure we're orienting it correctly according to the instructions, and then just lay it in there. And you can see how quickly this takes a hold. It's really nice. I'm quite a fan. And then we'll follow the seam lines that we glued before, and then we'll also go along all the seam lines that we found here. Again, just putting some more glue on there. Should be good. just came right together very nicely. So there's that piece, his rib cage, now assembled. This goes on to our tail piece and oriented this way, like that. So you can see how it just fits together. So once again, I'll go in here and just lay in my glue in the seam. And then drop that in there just like that. And I'll hold this for a second just to make sure with these heavier pieces that it doesn't go anywhere. So I'll just give this a hold for a minute. Yeah, it's feeling pretty good. The organic shapes really lend themselves nicely because whenever you're gluing any kind of material together, the greater the surface area between the two pieces being bonded, the stronger the bond will eventually be. That's why in woodworking, there's a number of different ways that you can join wood together in order to produce that really strong connection. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on. And it looks like we'll now need the greater parts of the carapace, which are these guys here. So let's go ahead and just nip those out. Get our knife back and we'll just clean some of these pieces up very carefully. All right, so we'll test fit these together again. Looks like they are going to just very nicely sit right there. All right. This one's a bit tricky. There we go. And remember with this type of plastic weld cement, if you get any on your model or you smear it or you get some on your finger and touch it, you will put an indelible fingerprint into your model because that glue will just melt right in. So always be careful of that. Then I'll just hold the palm of my hand here and go through, put some glue on the other joins up on top. Put a line down on the main body and along that last little edge there. Just like that. And once again, I'll grab my clips and just put them on some of these surfaces to make sure I'm getting a nice tight join, and then I'll just put some pressure on these ones here. All right, so let's take a look at the next piece. We're going to be assembling some more of these kind of ridge plates along his back. These guys here. So let's just take a look, make sure I match up their numbers properly. Looks like they're all nicely laid out right against each other. One thing that I really appreciate about these new miniatures is that Games Workshop tends to lay out matched parts near each other or on the same sprue as the model that they go to. All right. Give these a quick once over. Ooh, those are fragile. Okay, oops. See, you cut yourself, you get a stupid bandage on there, and then it just causes all kinds of trouble. Like basic dexterity. And we'll match these up. Just like that. Grab another clip. And set that down. And I think I'm out of clips, so I'll just hold this one together tightly for a second. All right. Take a look at our main body part here, and looks like we've gotten the nice join right there. This was the first one, so we'll put him, her, it, they. Looks like they go, like that, okay. Once again, always dry fit, because sometimes it can be a little confusing how these parts fit together on the model, even with the diagrams. So there we go. Coming together nicely. These will be so much fun to paint and look at on the gaming board. Yep. All right, so there we go. And we'll just move everything out of the way again so we can turn the page. All right, looks like we can let this sit for a moment. Carefully lay that maybe against something. There we go. And we'll work on the legs. So 14 and 15 are going to be this piece here. And this piece over here, it looks like. Yep, 14 and 15. And 12 and 13. Just like that. Now with this model, I probably won't glue him to his base. He's pretty large, and when I go to prime him and paint him, I'm going to want to get underneath him quite a bit, and between his legs, and his forelegs and his hind legs, and his weapon arm. In fact, if I was really being disciplined, I wouldn't probably glue. Oh, this is the Exocrine. So his giant gun is going on his back. Ah, there we go. The world is full of opportunities. All right. Give these a quick dry fit. clip. This model is actually really good for the clips because he's got some big areas where you can put them together. Not all models are as cooperative. Once again, nice thing about this plastic weld glue, if you get it on yourself, you won't glue your fingers together. All right, so we have another leg assembly, so maybe we'll start working on those while those other ones are drying. So we've got 16, 17, and 18. 16, and the big claw equals last piece. Okay, that's 1. Then we have 19, 20, 21. Piece here. Oops. Give him a quick once over with the knife. What I'll do is I'll tend to do these pieces at a little bit of a production line. I'm actually, especially when it comes to painting, I'm not the best at doing things in a way where, you know, painting 20 miniatures at one time. I tend to put a lot of investment into each miniature, which doesn't serve me well in getting things done, but I do get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So that's just my particular way of doing it. Of course, you can do these any way that you want, and the people who can do beautiful paint jobs on large sets of miniatures, I think, are amazing. I am about maxed out at 5 to 10 miniatures at a time, maybe, before I start to get a little overwhelmed and rush. All right, and we'll pop these together. Quick dry fit. Looks good. Ooh, very cool. I love these models. Just kind of see them lumbering around and operating on the battlefield in your mind, and I just really love it. All right, so that's that one. And then we'll follow that same procedure for the other foot here. All right, looking good. So I think we're at a stage where we can now go put our legs on the back of the main body. So get these off of their clips and move them over here. And just double check, and they're going to go into these last little sockets. These little pin-shaped sockets that are back on some of these models, they're helpful because, once again, they give you more surfaces to join, but at the same time, it can sometimes be a little difficult to figure out exactly what angle they want to go at. So really just play with it until you can see how it wants to sit in there with most of its edges and musculature matched up. Do the other one here. And I'll just kind of hold that in my hand here, and I'll make some space so that I can turn the page. Oh, and we're going to change orientation. Okay. Looks like those guys go there. And so we'll make ourselves some space that we can sit him on the ground and make sure that all of his surfaces are touching correctly. There's one. There's two, I believe, because they're backwards jointed. And they're going to go in that middle set, just like that. All right. So let's drop some glue in the first socket here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set the limb where it needs to be flat, and then just hold on to it for a moment just to set it in place. Sometimes I'll wiggle it a little bit because since the plastic in the joint is now liquid, you can push that well together and spread the surface area a little bit. Like that. And then because I like to multitask and make myself crazy, I will go ahead and drop some glue on the other socket there. And try and stick my head in the front of the camera. Nope. Let's just get this guy balanced over here for a second. Drop him right there. Nope, it's all falling apart. Let's just turn him. Let's just be a little smart. Let's just turn him. And we can just pin him down. Take a look at the other side. There we go. All right. And we'll just have to hold on to him for a second. And as he's sitting here, I'll just keep an eye on him and wiggle him around and see, make sure everything's sitting where I want it to be and that he's nice and balanced. This would be a good use of a little prop device. It's very advanced, very complicated, and I'm just going to wedge it under his chest. And then I'll go through and check his joints real quick, and he's looking good. So, back to the instructions again, doing my best not to hit him and goof him up. Let's continue on. So, looking at the Exocrine, looks like we can work on his head and his gun now. Very cool. So, 24 and 25, looks like those ones right there. I don't always follow the guides for the heads because sometimes they're really cool, but in this particular case, the horror specs' head is extremely unique, so there's not really going to be an easy way of switching it on there. All right, so there's his head, and then let's grab our other sprue here and cut out the two sides of his immense cannon. All right, give him a little once over. Being extra careful with these, whoops. Being extra careful, take two with these parts. to not damage the sweep and flow of the model, and also to not cut myself again. All right, and we've got his head here. Very cool, very neat. Happy little polymorphic xenomaniacal alien from another dimension. And let's pop his head together here. Make sure we don't have any terrible glue seams showing up there. Put that down. And it looks like we're going to be assembling his gun around his head. Oh, interesting. All right, so the gun will test fit here. Looks like that. And it looks like it's actually partially mounted into his helm, his head. How neat. Let's see here. Looks like I can probably glue this together first. All right. Now we've got that in. So, where exactly on his head do these fit? There's little pins that kind of fit into his head, though it's a little difficult to tell. Looks like it goes right beyond his cheekbone right there, so really up at the front. So I'd say right about there. There we go. Very nice. He really locks in there when you get it right. All right, so let's pull that out. Let's drop a minor amount of glue in here and just try and replicate that again. There we go. Look at that. Very nice. And as you can see, it kind of goes right up to the edge of his cheekbone right there and clicks right in, and once it's in, it's pretty darn solid. Very cool. All right. Now this, let's see, how is he doing on his legs here? Oh, they're a little squidgy. Let's turn him to the camera and put his support back on. Like that. And so this whole thing is going to fit right in here. But I think what I'll do is I'll prep the rest of the pieces, and then we'll come back and when he's a little drier and keep going. Okay, so we're back here, and we're actually looking a bit more solid on this model, so we can assemble the next part here. And I've already dry fit this, and there's a couple pins that fit right in here from this, so we'll put some glue on here. Clean this needle real quick. There we go. And we'll put this right on. Just like that. And that actually seems like it is pretty solid there. Trying to see maybe if we needed to give that a little bit of balance. But looking pretty good. Very nice. we'll go ahead and put the last two little mantis limbs on here. First one will go right up here. Just give that a little bit of a wiggle. Once again, just to help reinforce that weld. I'm also going to tip the model up a bit so I don't put weight on the legs, which are still a little bit wet. All right, that's looking pretty good. Don't need to prop him up a bit. So he's going to be okay. Looks like he'll probably be okay. No, because I played with him, he's coming down. No. All right, and then the other one. Mm-hmm. All right, and it looks like we're ready to go with our brand new Tyranid Exocrine Bio-weapon. Very nice, beautiful model, very fun, and it will be an absolute pleasure to paint. So thanks for tuning in with me, and we will see you next time.